kick off then. So welcome everyone to Work Smarter Together 21, and our guest speaker today is Breda McCague. And I won't spend too long doing introductions. I'll just note that Breda is a motivator, empowerment and transformation specialist, and she's here to deliver a session this morning called Minding You. Throughout the session, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat, so if you've got anything to ask or any comments to make, please feel free to pop stuff in the chat there. And then I'll keep an eye on that. And then if anyone has any issues, obviously they can chat to me directly if they're not hearing or if there's any issues going on. But that's what I'm here for, and that's all I'm here for. Breda's here for everything else. So I'm going to hand over to Breda, and I'm going to unspotlight myself.
So Jeremy isn't going to stay with me, folks. I did try to make that happen. I'm going to share my screen now in one little second. Hopefully we'll be able to get you some slides. Ta-da! Can everybody see slides? Yay! And can everybody work out that I'm mad into colors and graphics? My blouse has gone nuts on me today. My screen's nuts on me today. I'm Breda McCague, and I am delighted to be with you this morning. I'm co-founder and co-chair of Lean in Ireland. I'm also a mad advocate for change and for diversity and inclusion. And I do a lot of agile transformation projects myself in corporates. So I'm sort of in every world. I'm a bit of an emotional intelligence coach as well. And then I do a lot of talks because of my background. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am in terms of my background in a second, because I always like to know a bit about the presenters in front of me when I'm in the audience. So these are all very welcome. I hope you enjoy the talk that I've prepared for you. Okay, so this is a little bit about who I am. 1 wee second, there we are. Okay, so Lean In, for those that don't know, is the foundation that Sheryl Sandberg, who is COO of Facebook, has set up, and it's all about empowering women. And the mission for Lean In is all around helping women to achieve their ambitions, whatever they may be. And I started it in Dublin because I was mentoring a lot of women, seeing women mentoring others, and decided I'd try and build it out. And I have introduced a lot of Lean In circles to a lot of corporates and a lot of big organizations where I have peers mentoring each other, just pushing each other out of comfort zones and trying to get people into the right pipeline so that we can get our diversity mix right up at senior levels across all organizations. But I also do a lot of motivational talks because I became an emotional intelligence coach, because I ran into a lot of personal issues myself and had to teach myself self-mastery and mind mastery. So I've been studying that stuff for about 7 years now. And I want to share it with everybody else. I want to teach everybody the basics of mind mastery and self-mastery so that they can then use it for their benefit as well. I started a rock band when I was almost 40. I had not played music in 10 years. And I had always played music as a kid. And it was such a big spark in my life that had gone out. And I got back into a rock band is where I went. Like, I've never even done that before. But my spark ignited from there. And the reason that I'm saying that to you is I want you all thinking about what it is that ignites your spark. It doesn't matter if you did it when you were a kid. If it ignites your spark, maybe that's somewhere in your purpose for life. So just have a think about that while I continue. During lockdown last year, I launched my own YouTube show because I want to interview people that inspire me around the world. And I want to share that with everybody, because I believe the more inspirational people you can get into your life, the more you will learn, the more you will open your mind, the more you will make something of that big, awesome life that you've been given the opportunity to do something with. So have a look at that for me if you want to see who I've been interviewing from all over the globe. It's a fabulous people on it. Military, I joined the Reserve Defence Forces when I was 17. No idea what I was doing. I had no military background at all, but I was going for the crack and ended up in it for 20 years. And that's where I suppose I learned a lot about inequality and unconscious biases and learned how to open my mind, because I was one of 5 girls that arrived into the army.
Sweetie, I can't hear her.
Is there
No, Dan, I really don't want you to do that.
Oh, we've somebody not on mute. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Yeah,
Sorry.
okay, good. I thought it was my mic. I was like, oh no.
No, you're okay. We've just
Yeah.
unmuted or muted the other person there. Thanks, Breda.
Cool, cool. So let me go back to my little thumbnail view. Cool. So military, spent 20 years in it and became their first female lieutenant after joining as a 17-year-old girl. And a lot of the guys had said to me, Breda, you know, you're really nice and we like you, but you're only 5'1" and you're not going to be able to carry the mortars and you're not going to be able to do the route marches, and women should never have been allowed in here. Now, they weren't being horrible to me. They thought they were doing me a favor. But that is why I had then to prove a point to everybody there around me that I deserved to be there just as much as they did. And that's why I got so involved in inclusion. Because when we exclude people, not through malice, but through our unconscious biases, then we leave people out in the cold, right? And they have to work so hard to get back in there. So I want us to think about that. I have 3 boys, Dara, Jamie and Kyle. And they are my little rocks, the 3 of them. And then I play in trad bands as well. And then I do programs of transformation in big corporates as well. And I often do talks in those. So that's who I am. Now we're going to you. So this is what I've written for you today. I met Josephine and Olga one day and they told me a bit about what's happening with UCD. So I put this together for you based on some of the information I got that day. I hope you like my neon colors. I love the graphics. So we're going to do a pulse test, right? This is all about you self-assessing. Then we're going to look at minds, the inputs and the outputs that we are in control of. Then we're going to look at our homes having become our headquarters, lockdown thoughts, decisions and choices, the emotions, the companions that we can no longer ignore because they are with us right now in lockdown and have become more prevalent than ever in everyone's lives. So I want to teach you a little bit about the emotions and how you can manage them and how you can learn to understand them better and work them better. Communicating within your digital space, because I've worked remotely for the last 12 years. I used to be part of a team in London and I had teams all over the world. So I was remote 12 years ago when it wasn't a thing. And I had to learn how to communicate digitally better because I was invisible on the ground. And I think we're all now in that boat. So I want to share with you some of the sort of ways I do things and some of the lenses that I want you to see this through. And then coping and growth in lockdowns, because I believe there's lots of potential for growth in lockdowns. Many's a time before lockdown hit, I was saying, if I could only get a week at home. Be careful what we wish for, right? And make sure if you've got questions for me, gather them up. I want loads of interaction at the end of this and loads of feedback from you. Pulse test. Now, this is for you to do on yourself. I want you with a notepad and paper right in front of you. Feel free to take pictures of these slides as we go. If it's something that you can even bring into your evening and think about a little longer after your day's work, that would be great because I love to see action coming out of these talks. Your mental fitness. Where would you say that's at right now? Would you say it's really poor? Would you say you're on it, but it needs work? Or would you say you're uber proud of yourself? You're working on your mind a lot. And just on that, when we talk about fitness, a lot of people think of the gym. They think of, working their muscles. They think of, their torso. We talk about abs and we want a tighter this and a tighter that. What are you doing with your mind muscle? Right? Many people are not thinking about this. You need to be working on your mind muscle just as much as thinking of the physical body fitness, because the mind muscle is managing all those emotions, how you feel, it's coordinating all of the physical fitness as well, all of the decisions you're making, all of the lenses you're seeing the world through, all of that's happening in that mind muscle. And I'd love to see people starting to see that as something they need to be working on, because if you're not working on it, it's not going to develop the way it could for you and serve you the way it could. Physical wellness. Would you say you're really poor in terms of the physical wellness you've been doing? You're on it, but it needs work. And uber proud of yourself is the last option. And if you've answered really poor and I need to be doing more because we're all sitting a lot now, what could you do? Some small little things that you could do during the day. Maybe make yourself a wee rule that when you get up in the morning, you'll at least do stretches, or you'll do some aerobics or a little dance around the place or something to get yourself moving. And again, think about the creative mind you have, and your imagination is phenomenal. Are you using it to figure out new ways that you could be doing these things? Because physical wellness will bring you, it's a lot of fun if you're doing it right. And we need fun in our lives as well, because monotony is just killing so many people and all their creativity. So I want fun into our lives on an integrated way every day. Productivity, would we say we're really poor? I'm on it, but it needs work, or I'm uber proud of myself? Because a lot of people are telling me, because I'm coaching so many men and women all over the place, and I end up doing from career coaching to life coaching to emotional intelligence coaching. And I'm seeing a lot of people saying, I have just no mojo, Breda, it's gone. And that's just the monotony, because if you're not trying to drive some changes and some variety in your days in lockdown, then nothing will fall into your lap. So to get our productivity right, we need to be doing some of the other things as well. Happiness, we've talked about that. It's crucial. If we think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there's lots of things in there, but one of them is to be happy. And so many people are not really prioritizing their happiness in lockdown, right? They're struggling with it. And I would say, again, back to that creativity you have, and your imagination is rife if you let it go. Let it go. A lot of people, when they grow up, are told not to be childish, act your age. How many times have you heard that? And I just say the total opposite. Do not act your age at all. Let your imagination grow. Let it develop. Let it run wild, because that's how you can innovate. And you need to be innovating in your day-to-day life at the moment. Making new contacts, right? So when you meet new people, you get new energy. We were talking about that before we started. But how many of you are still managing to make new contacts in lockdown? Because many people think, oh, I can't go to meet anybody for a coffee now. I won't bump into anybody. But you've got a whole load of social media platforms full of inspirational people. And what I did last year in lockdown, I could find myself a couple of months into lockdown missing interactions and missing finding random people that just inspire me or blow my mind. So I went on LinkedIn and I started to interact a bit more with people I didn't know that had put posts up. It might have been something about leadership. It might have been something about integrity. It might have been about including people. It was fairly generic. And I started messaging them and going, I really like what you're doing there. And then they'd comment on mine. And then we'd go to DMs and direct message each other a few times, maybe sharing articles. And then we'd have a Zoom. And I ended up meeting all of these amazing people last year. And I'm still at it. And that's who I'm interviewing on all of these shows. So if I can do that, you can do that too. It's very, very important for you, because it adds that variety, that fun, that excitement into your lockdown experience, which is exactly what you need. Your vision for your future. Are you using lockdowns to work on that? Because again, so many people are saying to me, Breda, just getting through the day some way. And I've watched all of Netflix and I'm going, oh my God, I am flat out. I have vision boards coming out my ears here. And have you got a vision? Because if you don't have a vision for your future, then you won't have something that will drive you. Our minds think in pictures and words. So we've got to get good at writing and drawing down lifestyles, goals, career goals, life goals, things that you'd love to be doing in your life. Get them on paper some way. I don't care whether you do it on a PowerPoint and you snip pictures in, or you draw it on a wall on a sheet of paper. But get something done some way, even if it's just Post-its. Your mind needs that to signpost. Mindsets in lockdown, right? So the radio, TV, internet, and people are awash with bad news. Consuming the news can activate the sympathetic nervous system. So basically what's happening is we're seeing lots of fatigue, anxiety, depression, and trouble sleeping across all of humans in lockdowns, right? We need to think about what it is we're putting in there, right? Think about all that bad news that's out there for us. But the emotional toll and negative effect on the psyche was demonstrated in a study. So they've actually studied people who were watching negative material. And after 14 minutes of viewing television news, bulletins and programs, those people were showing some of those signs. Now, life is difficult enough without us allowing that kind of information exposed up here. There's loads of articles on that if you want to have a wee read, but I just want you thinking about what it is, what are you exposing your mind to on a daily basis, right? Because our daily habits are where all of the secrets lie. What are you listening to? What are you reading? Who are you having conversations with? I don't do news at all. No news in my world. There's no news on my feeds. There's no news on the telly. I don't watch news. My mother rings me to say, did you hear? I get the updates that way. I get the headlines. Positive thinking. So the health benefits of positive thinking. So there's loads of them basically, right? But some of them are there in front of you. Increased lifespan, lower rates of depression and distress, greater resistance to the common cold. So your immunity is better. Better psychological and physical well-being, better cardiovascular health and reduced risk of death, and better coping skills during hardships and times of stress. Now, I've been through some hairy stuff in lockdown that I won't go into here, but I absolutely know that my sense of humor and the positive feed that I have going in here is what gets me through. If you are good at feeding yourself positive thinking, testing your thinking on affirmations, on quotes, reading articles around your own mind or your psychology, then you will have tooled your mind in terms of resilience. And no matter what comes your way, whether it's a pandemic or whether we get out of this pandemic and it's something else, but change is going to keep coming at us. I can guarantee you that. And I'm delivering change for 20 years. Change doesn't stop, but how you adapt can get better. How resilient you are can get better. And if you get really resilient and really good and smart and positive with change, then you can turn it into all sorts of opportunities, which I have done with my life. So there's the managing inputs and outputs. So I've touched on some of that already. It's just, I want you to think of what you're in your feed. Many of you open your feed on social media on your phone so many times a day. Is it something that makes you feel better when you put the phone down? Or is it something that you're now worried about when you put the phone down? Or is it something that you feel inadequate? You've seen somebody fabulous on this, some feed or other, and you're feeling it. So that's no good for us, okay? We only want feeds that are going to give us those positive feelings, because our thoughts become our emotions, and our emotions is exactly how we feel day to day. So you have control of this. You may not have realized it, but you have. Okay, so question for you is, when you look back on this period of your life, what regrets might you have? And I want everybody to be really truthful with themselves, and I want you writing those down. Because it's like what I said earlier, everybody said to me, oh, what I wouldn't do for a week at home. I used to say that. I used to say, if I had more time, I would be, recording videos on emotions. I would be recording videos on mindset. I would be teaching people. And lockdown happened, and I was in difficult circumstances in lockdown, but I had a vision board with all of that on it. And I decided, well, I'm just going to make this happen anyway. So I made myself record on YouTube. I made myself understand how to record Zooms, how to do thumbnails on YouTube. I did all of that at night. So what is it you always said you were going to do? And what might you regret when we're out of this? Because what we don't want is regrets in life, folks. They're the hard things to deal with. So don't be kicking yourself. Instead of that, I want you writing those down right now. What is it that you think you might regret when we get out of this? And somebody somewhere is going to say to me when we're out of lockdowns, if only I had a week in lockdown again. I know they are, because when we are all out again and we are up to 90 and we are commuting and we are back to back and we are just, there's no hours left in the day. We all got hours handed back to us, which never happens. That was the rarest thing ever. What have you done with those hours? So who is driving who? Is your diary driving you, or are your priorities driving it? So very like the last question, what is it that you wanted to do that maybe you haven't got to yet? And if you have, great, I want to hear about that. But think of your diary, right? The way to make these things happen is to get them scheduled. So if you have an idea, it's a fleeting thought and it'll go in here and out there until it's written down. When it's written down, you can put some actions around it, what you can do to make this thing happen for yourself. And then it's got to get into that diary of yours. If it's in the diary will just drive you and you'll end up achieving some of those actions. That's how you do this stuff. Because if you're relying on your willpower to get you up every morning and to do loads of these actions, that may not work out, because life will distract you There'll be different focuses landing in as your day goes. So get it into the diary, pencil out some, it doesn't have to be big, right? You can absolutely intertwine some of the priorities for you with your workday, because we all have 24 hours. We can choose how to work that best for ourselves if we put some thought into it. And then lastly, say no. Now is not the time to take more stress on yourself if you're already struggling. Your most important job might be to survive right now. So know when to lean out. That's a really important one as well. And I know we're all mad for trying to do our best and, you know, help everybody. But you've got to realize as well that you are in a lockdown and there is a lot of monotony. And until you have all of those other points up and running for yourself, if you are in a place where you're struggling, know when it's time to step out for a little bit and give yourself a rest. Because we all need to be well and coming out of this the other side in good shape, not in bad shape. Right. Headquarters moved into the kitchen. So we talk about working from home. And as I said, I've worked from home for 12 years, not full time, but on and off. I've had hybrid model. I've been working all sorts of ways around my lifestyle to manage 3 kids by myself. But what has happened now is a lot of people are going, is this what working from home's like? I don't like it. Some of them are saying, I love it. Some of them are saying, this is cruel. I can't do this. But this is not normal, what we're doing right now, because usually you would be able to go to an office and have face-to-face meetings. Usually you would be able to break up your week with a conference somewhere, a physical in a room with real people shaking hands. So working from home is awesome, but you may have had a real sort of a lot of it of late. And what I want us to realize is this is not the usual working from home. Your office has moved into your home. So you haven't been to an office. So offices are now in your home, and your home used to be the place where you could switch off. So if anybody's put off by all of this working from home, don't be, because it's not like this when you get out again. And hybrid models are awesome. Being able to do loads of work at home in peace, some days when you know you have a lot of workload, and then managing all of your diary to make sure that you've all your face-to-face meetings and your training and all of that on site. You can be very, very efficient with your week then. And then you're maximizing all of the time. It's cool, so it is. So don't give up. And then the classroom appeared in the kitchen too. So I've had 3 of them being homeschooled here as I work 2 jobs. So I know all about it. And I'm just reminding everybody, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. So don't let it put you off. It'll be class when we get out again and we can work our weeks to suit us. So who are we? This is all about you as a team, you as an organization of humans. You're a variety of minds, experiences, biases, and experiences trying to work together virtually in exceptional circumstances. So that's who you are. And sometimes it doesn't go so well, sometimes it's brilliant. But we've got to remember that that's who we are and that's what we're trying to do. We're all trying our best to do it. So let's recognize that and all the efforts that people are going to. If we think about who we are, every one of us is so unique. Different levels of emotional intelligence, very different levels of self-awareness often. Unconscious biases, you couldn't make it up. We have all so many different unconscious bias. We're all at a different place in our journey, learning about unconscious bias and mastering them. Diverse backgrounds. We're all coming from very different places, perhaps, you know, in terms of workplaces, we've all seen it different. We've all been in different cultures. So we've all got that with us. This is all our baggage that we've picked up. Our diverse experiences. We've all had those in a very different way as well. We all communicate differently as well. Some are very quiet, some are very extroverted, some are labeled that shouldn't be labeled at all. Some of us don't like communicating, some of us love it. And we all have different desires. So we're all here wanting something different. So, you know, this is who we are, trying to do our best. So when we achieve things, let's be good to ourselves, right? Because that's quite an achievement. So I don't know if you've ever thought about it like that, but that's what we are trying to do on a daily basis. So I want us to encourage each other and recognize that we are doing well at this, considering. So this is a bit about your unconscious and subconscious, your conscious and subconscious minds, which is something I've had to learn. And I'm not sure if everybody realizes that every day you're making decisions They are being based on what's in your subconscious mind and your conscious mind. So I had to understand all of this to be able to do self-mastery and mind mastery some years back. And I just think it's a very beneficial little nugget of information for people to get their heads around. I've drawn this up like a computer because your subconscious mind is like a central processing unit. It's like the big piece, the chunky IT piece that sits under the desk quite often. And the desktop, so the bit at the front, is where you see the information, but that's not where it's all being processed. So it's easy to get your head around when you think of it like that. So you've got a conscious mind. If we think of the conscious mind here, you're making decisions right now. You're analyzing what I say using your conscious mind. Your logic is in there. You're trying to figure out, you know, how you're relating to the information I'm saying, all with that conscious mind. But what happens is the subconscious mind will feed information into your conscious mind. So you will maybe make judgments on what I'm saying. Maybe you'll be thinking, I really like that. Maybe I really don't like that. Maybe I could really learn this. And that'll be all based on the beliefs that you have in your subconscious mind. So if we think of our day-to-day interaction with our teams, think of the people you work with, you're going on meetings all the time, and there's questions being asked of you, and your conscious mind is going to get the solution, but that's been fed all the time by what's in that subconscious mind of yours. And your subconscious mind is something that was programmed fairly well by the age of 5 or 7. Scientists vary. Some of them say 5, some of them say 7 years of age. But all of the environment that you grew up in was absorbed. And all of the beliefs, all of your biases, everything is hard-coded into your subconscious mind. And every night that you go to sleep, your subconscious mind opens, it picks up all of the stuff it processed in the conscious mind that day, and it hard codes again. So the decisions you're making every day, whether they're big or small, that's how they're working. And on top of that, you have 6,000 thoughts a day. And most of those, now they've studied the brain activity of lots of different humans to see how many actual thoughts we're having, because we've got lots of brain activity going on all the time. But you've got 6,000 thoughts a day, and most of it comes from that subconscious mind. Now, what we also have is a negativity bias. When we were in caves many years ago, we needed a negativity bias because it kept us on our toes and it kept us alive, because you could be eaten by a bear in primitive times, but we're not there now. So we've ended up with these subconscious minds that are not the most positive, and that's what's feeding quite often the decisions we're making, the thoughts we have, the conclusions we're coming to, the judgments we're making on things. So we need to start understanding this stuff so we can then get into that subconscious mind and see, is that really serving you? Think about that. It's all about finding ways to serve you better. That's what this is all about. Now, your subconscious mind that's where all of your really deep-rooted beliefs are. Your self-beliefs are in there. How you feel about yourself, what you think you deserve, how good you think you are, how lovable you think you are you enough? All of that is in there. And that, remember, is driving the thoughts you have and the conclusions you come to on a regular basis. Your childhood program is in there. Your emotions are in there. Your long-term emotional memories are in there. Your biases, your beliefs on self-worth, on your self-value, your confidence is in there. Your really deep-rooted confidence, the unshakable stuff, whether it's unshakable or not, it's in there. Your views on abundance. So do you deserve more? Do you deserve the best in life? All of that is in there. Views on right or wrong, integrity levels are there. Your ego is in there as well, and your sense of entitlement. And what I want you to think about that will help you with this is the environment again when you were a kid. Think of the beliefs, the biases, the beliefs of self-worth and self-value that you've seen role modeled around you by the adults that were in your life. Did you see that they were really, really good with the confidence piece? Were they really thinking that they deserved the best? Were they aiming for awesome all the time? Were they really good at mastering unconscious bias? Had they no bias? Did they not judge people? Because that'll tell you a lot of what's got in there on you. And the reason that we're doing this today is because the good news is if you start to understand that, you get to change it. And how you change the negative thinking in there is by, first of all, finding it. You've got to catch yourself thinking. A lot of people don't realize that. You're thinking unconsciously all of the time. But to do some of the work on this, if you want to do a bit of mind mastery, which everybody will benefit from around you, then you've got to catch yourself thinking. You've got to catch yourself talking to yourself. Many of us are critiquing ourselves, but we're not even aware of it until we start listening. You've got to catch that stuff. And when you catch yourself either giving out to yourself, or you're thinking negatively about somebody else, or you're starting to judge people, you've got to catch that. Ditch it into a bin. I coach a lot of people that you know, your inbox bin. Imagine you've got one of those here in your mind. It's a virtual bin. And you put all of the negative thinking and those judgments that you're making and the criticizing that you're doing of yourself or others into that bin. And you've got to replace every one that you found with 3 positive thoughts. And that's where positive affirmations comes in. So just for those that are not sure of affirmations, those are statements that are positive. And what you're doing there is you're retraining that subconscious mind. Now, it takes a while because you've been thinking the way you've been thinking for all of your life. So you've got to start now going the other way. You've got to catch the negative thinking, the judgments, the biases, ditch them into a bin, realize they're not going to serve you, they're going to cause you damage. And you've got to replace them with 3 positive ones. They all usually start with I am. So one of the ones that I teach a lot of people is, I am unapologetically awesome. And if you've just said that in your head and went, oh my God, that'll tell you what's in there. Because we love familiar. And my positive affirmations are not familiar to a lot of people because we've been busy critiquing ourselves for years. And we've been busy judging people. And we've been busy criticizing things in the world and people around us and ourselves. So when you start positive affirmations, it feels weird because your mind likes familiar, and that is not familiar. Positive thinking is not familiar to a lot of people. And yet, when you can get enough of it in there, your subconscious mind will serve you like it never did before. Your decisions will change. You won't be worried about what people think of you anymore. You will start to realize your own value and you start to demand sort of that value from people and the world around you. So everything changes if you can get this stuff mastered. So we leave that bit there. I want you writing some of this down because you've got to try this. Otherwise, I'm wasting my time here. I want you trying some of this. Core emotions. So emotions are something that every one of us have, right? When we were girls and boys and in our youth, whatever gender you related to, you didn't often get taught how to manage emotions because they didn't know back then. But we now all have Google and we now have any amount of resource online. But again, as I talked about earlier, you're opening phones and, you know, we're looking at influencers sometimes, or we're looking at the bad news. And yet there's buckets of information that you could be reading as you go. Every time you open that phone, you could get another wee snippet around helping you to deal with your emotions and master them and get them regulated better. It's amazing stuff. So the core emotions are anger, fear, sadness, disgust, surprise, anticipation, trust, and joy. And there's loads beneath that. Those are just sort of the headliners. And what I want you to do with me today is why, right? That's where the trail starts. So say you get upset with a colleague and you're annoyed and somebody has said something on a call or done something, whatever it is, right? And you're feeling annoyed. You might feel a bit of anger, or you might feel a bit of disgust or lack of trust or whatever you're feeling. But I want you to think about why you feel that, because what's important to remember here is what triggers your emotions might not trigger mine. So we all assume that we're all the same, and we are not, because our subconscious minds have all been programmed differently. We are all very, very unique. So if something triggers in you, rather than you respond explosively or just respond negatively or even let it destroy your day by burning up your energy because you're getting annoyed, start to figure out why that annoyed you and try to validate that, because sometimes we get annoyed because we have insecurities. And sometimes the way we react emotionally is more to do with us than it is to do with whatever someone said. And if you can start to see this, then what you're getting there is clues as to what is in your subconscious mind. Might there be something that has triggered in there that you don't feel enough, and someone has said something that has just triggered that emotion on you? Because when you're in conversation or you're on calls, what's happening is your conscious mind is processing that, but remember, your subconscious mind is jumping in with your beliefs and helping you to come to conclusions because of those beliefs you have. And thoughts become emotions. So say if I'm on a call with you and somebody says something to annoy me, what will happen first is I'll start thinking, why did she say that? Or why did he say that? And what did they mean by that? And they're the thoughts bit. And then what will happen then is the emotions will come after that. The emotions will come because I've been thinking, that subconscious mind has been giving me my answers on this and conclusions. So when you start to understand how this stuff works, you can see how important it is to get into that subconscious mind and understand what it is you have in there in terms of beliefs. Because when you change them, everything changes. Everything changes. And if I think of my colleagues, like I'm a very different person to work with now than I was years ago before I mastered all this. I'm a very different parent now. Before I'd mastered all this, I was parenting default. I was parenting the way I was parented. And now it's totally different. And I'm at this about 6 to 7 years, and my little boy is 6, and he is a totally different kid to the older boys. So this stuff's important, folks. We need to get good at this because everybody around you will benefit from you doing work like this on you. This is the pattern that we do this in. So we feel something, we need to identify it, okay? Why do I feel like that? Do this with happiness as well. If things are making you happy, remember at the start I talked about the spark. What it is that makes you spark, right? Figure that out. Identify what it is and start to understand why that's the thing making you happy or that's the thing making you sad. And then express that, because what I do find with lockdown is so many of us are feeling certain ways, but we are suppressing our emotions. If you suppress your emotions, it will manifest and it'll just attach itself in your mind. It'll turn up as anxiety or depression, or it'll turn up in your body eventually as disease. You'll get ill. So emotions, men and women all have emotions. Men didn't get as much schooling, to be fair, when they were younger on how to deal with emotions. They were told not to cry and suppress them. So I spend a lot of time with guys as well to try and help them express emotion. You need to get it out. You get expressing emotion by talking or by writing. Journal if you don't want to talk to anybody. So journal is just writing all about your emotions. That's how you express them. That's how you start to untangle them. That's how you start to understand what's behind them. Remember that subconscious mind. How we communicate. This is what we have to do now. We have to be purposeful about it. We've got to have it planned, plentiful, multi-channel, multi-format and varied. So I would ask you, are you doing that? Because I learned the 12 years ago when I started remote working that I had to up my game right across all of those to be visible, to make sure people knew what I was doing, and to see was there other things that I could get involved in as well, right? So think about how you're communicating right now. Are you using it well? Do you think you could be doing it better? This is your digital space. This is what it looks like right now. So as you can see all the bubbles, you've got social media, professional and personal. You've got chat groups, emails, video calls, texts, phone calls, voicemails, voice messages, recorded video messages, and websites, educational and influential. What are you doing with all of that? And are you on any of that? Are you sharing your views? Because everybody I meet has loads of expertise, right? You work in UCD. So you've got loads of expertise that the world could do with knowing. So are you confident enough to share that? And if not, why? And we're back then into that subconscious mind. What will people think? Who cares? And I'll give you a wee quote. What other people think of me is none of my business. I had to drill that into myself years ago when I started my self-mastery journey. And it has been the most liberating thing ever. And I want every one of you to write that down and practice it every day. Right? Think of the feed. What is it that you're putting into your mind? Try to feed your mind affirmations that will help you grow. So what other people think of me is none of my business. So digital space, you've got one, whether you're using it or not. You've got a brand and you've got a profile online. whether you like it or not, because that's where we're all at and will be for a while. So I want you thinking about how you can use that a little bit better, because you've got a voice, start using it. And then have you seen other people? Because a lot of people kind of go, I don't know how to do this. So I want you thinking about people you see that use their digital space well. Success is repeatable. I don't want anybody starting to build the wheel again. Just watch what others are doing and start doing a little bit of that yourself, bit by bit, and start to understand how to work that and get yourself out there. Visible, brand, let people know what you're doing and what your expertise is. The world needs all of us to be doing that. Coping and growth in lockdowns. So what I think we all need, and what I've seen with those that have managed to do it, including myself, is healthy distractions are very important. And again, a lot of people say, but how can I do that? I'm in lockdown. Use your imagination. Get creative. Now is the time to start using your imagination. You never really had to do it before, but it needs you to be sort of triggering it now. It needs to be working for you. You need to have fun. I don't care how you do it, but find ways of having fun. Escapism is very important because you're not getting to travel, and that means your mind isn't getting to see new things and experience and test itself. So you need to do some escapism, whether that's a virtual way or some other way, using your imagination. Music, very, very good for you. Get it going. And make sure that if you're listening to music, think of the feed that I was talking about. Don't listen to the sad stuff, because what's that doing, right? That's telling you you're lonely. None of that allowed, right? Music on that uplifts you. I listen to different types of music depending on the work I'm doing. If I'm doing spreadsheets, I listen to mad traditional music, crazy fast stuff. If I'm doing Word documents, I'm on something else. So find what works for you and do that. Learning, right? Your neuroplasticity can multiply when you're learning. So you can be building your mind in lockdown, and that would be the perfect place to do it. Perfect environment. Hobbies, find some hobbies, get some new ones if you haven't already got some that you can actually do. And then the other thing is the coping bit. I want people to start using the professional support services, because it's important to express that emotion, whether that's talking, writing. There's loads of different lines you can ring and text and everything to find somebody that is professionally able to listen to you, because sometimes our friends listen but they don't hear, and sometimes they don't really know what advice to give us. So be careful with that. Journaling, writing, I've already talked about. Practicing gratitude. If you're in a rough spot at any point in your life and you're able to manage to get that mind mastered into being grateful, then you will find your mind can't do anxiety, depression, and grateful at the same time. It really struggles, right? And your mind will believe what you tell it. So if you are in a bad situation and you're feeling down, if you tell your mind, I am having the best time, I have so much to be grateful for, look at this and look at that, you've got to get the creative imagination going and be really grateful for what you have. And the, you know what, easiest way to do that is think of others. So no matter what you're going through, you can always be sure that there are others going through a hell of a lot worse than you are. And just remember, if you're feeling down, get your mind out of it by directing it in a different way. You can choose your thoughts. Always remember that. So if you're feeling down, it's because your thoughts have you feeling down, right? They're feeling like, I can't go here and I can't travel and all that. And what's happening there is emotion. Remember I was saying earlier, the thoughts come first and then the emotion. So those emotions can be undone by you redirecting your thoughts. You've got to start doing the gratitude bit. Your mind can't do both. So that's how you get it out of it some of the time. Affirmations and practicing positive thoughts. I've already mentioned that. But even if you just put in hashtag positive affirmations in your Instagrams, go and do a search for affirmations, even on LinkedIn for me, anywhere. Just do a search, TC, and start following some of the profiles that come up there, because there are people around the world sharing this stuff flat out and they are amazing. So you need a little bit of chunk of that when you're in lockdowns. And then others, whatever else works for you. This is a little equation for you. This is happy humans over here. So fulfilling work, personal and work blend. So many people are trying to get a personal and work balance, which I think is quite difficult because your mind doesn't just switch off when you're logged off. So often there'll be things coming back into your mind that evening about work, or otherwise in work, you'll be thinking about personal stuff. So I would say try a blend rather than a balance. A blend is much more doable, and you can integrate your life and your work quite well if you go for blend, and they can complement each other. Flexibility is very important to all of us, and focused well-being. So well-being doesn't often happen on its own. You've got to be focused on it, and you've got to be doing some of the things I talked about earlier. And if you do all of those things, you will be a happy human. And the last quote is, don't be so busy making a living that you forget to have a life. And the reason that's there is I know so many people are in lockdown that have just replaced those hours that I talked about earlier, that you got back, that you don't have to commute, with more work. And that's not exactly what we should have been doing. So don't be so busy making a living that you forget to have a life. That's by Dolly Parton. And that is it. That is my talk concluded. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for having me. I want some feedback from you. I want any questions that you have come my way. And there is some links. My website is there, which is the best way to go, because you'll find all of the links to my YouTube, to some of those interviews that I talked about. I'd love if some of you listen to them to take some inspiration out of that. And on my Instagram, I do post a lot of positive affirmations. I did a 21-day trial with everybody in January, and I always post little bits up there that I'm finding as I'm coaching people all of the time. So hopefully you can integrate some of what I'm doing into your thinking daily, and hopefully that starts to get you more and more down that road into self-mastery, where the world is bliss. And I'm going to come back now onto the grid to see you all again and cut my slides.
Thanks, Breda. That was brilliant. I've taken down loads of notes. You'll be happy to hear I wrote down lots of what you said. We've got a few minutes left, so I don't know if you were comfortable, if there were people who had any questions, if you wanted to take them, we can do that.
Yeah.
If you want to pose your questions in the chat or raise your hand, I can unmute you and you can ask a question if you've got one. There's good comments coming through anyway. I've gotten some personal ones, but just people saying there's stuff to take away, and obviously you can see the comments yourself.
Yeah.
I had a question, and I'll kick it off if it's okay with you. You mentioned stuff about when you go to bed at night, the stuff that you've experienced during the day can hard code to. What's the thing that you found to be the most effective at doing that? Because I think that's the thing that people struggle with the most, is overcoming those biases and the stuff that's hard coded and how they view the world, and it can be really tricky to change that. So is it just a case of getting into a cycle?
No, so it's a great question, Jeremy, and thank you for all those comments. I'm reading that here, some deadly ones there, and some very representative of the remote working and virtual world we're in as well. So when your subconscious opens at night, so what I had started to do was I did a lot of the work during the day on myself. I was very focused on catching negative thoughts and judgments and biases, right? And I was doing all of the hard work, because this is hard work, folks. When you start this, you'll be like, oh, this is too hard. And the way to get better at this is, for every negative thought that you catch, you have to replace it with 3 positive ones. And if you have that wee rule going for yourself, you'll soon get stricter with yourself on your negative thinking, because you'll have to do 3 positive ones every time, and you'll start to get fed up of all that work. So do that during the day. But what I was doing at nighttime was I looked up YouTube's and I put in nighttime meditation. There are loads of them in there, and that absolutely brought me on leaps and bounds. So I had the earphones in at night. I was picking them. You can get everything from self-belief. You can get things like trauma, dealing with trauma. You can get ones that help you understand abundance better. And you just sleep, and it plays away in your ears. And I did that for a full month, because it takes 21 days to break a habit. And again, you're thinking the same way for your entire life. So we've got to get that changed. So it takes a full month of listening to those. And they'll be working at night as you're working on it during the day. And that's how you get that changed. Now, if your question, Jeremy, is more about, when you're working all day and you're at night thinking about work, Like that is something you can't really stop, because your mind is processing at different times and there's different distractions coming in and out. And maybe when it gets quiet, it starts to go, you haven't done this, so you have to do that or whatever. And all you need to do to capture that is get it written down, or even into a diary. So everybody else says, keep your phone out of your room. I'm saying, put your phone in the room, but use it right. And I would absolutely have seen myself putting stuff in phones into my diary the following day in the morning. Like I get up in the morning, it'll say, you forgot to ring such a one, or whatever. And once it's in the diary, it's got, okay, so it's captured, and you know you'll do it the following day, so you can forget about it. But I don't think, you know, fleeting thoughts at night go away unless they're written somewhere. Then your mind can rest again.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah. Sorry, I was too personally invested in that question. I was listening too much to think about what I was going to do next. Loads of good comments coming through there again. Someone had someone drop in at the beginning and not leave. That was from Kate. So her daughter dropped in and stayed for the session because it was interesting. I think a lot of people found that stimulating. Does anyone have any questions for Breda?
Can I just jump in there on some of the stuff I see?
Of course, yeah.
In the chat. About your mind and about kids. You got to remember that this stuff was not taught to you when you were a kid, right? So I have all these adults now coming to me in an emotional mess, hitting emotional walls, and I was one of them at one point. But I would love if we would all be able to do a bit of work on this and then help our kids to learn some of this, because why would you not want your kids to be tooled up on this stuff? Because they're going to head off to college and become adults. Wouldn't it be amazing if they had all of these skills because you taught them? And that is what I'm doing now. So think about that for those who have young people around them. And even if you haven't got kids, like there's always young people watching you as an adult, and you're a role model, whether you like it or not. And even online, whether you realize it or not, you're inspiring people. So let's make it good. Let's get into this stuff and get a good grip on it and start to practice it for ourselves, and then let everybody watch us, so that we are all learning together, you know. And this journey you start never stops. It's the most fascinating thing ever. When you start to understand your mind, it's amazing. Yeah.
There's a question in there from Orla about any tips on creating vision boards.
Yes, it's a great question. So, and there's another good one there about managers. So vision boards, what you'll do for me is just a simple way to get started on a vision board is piece of paper, right? And draw a little S road. So I have all sorts of vision boards in this room of mine. If you've seen here what I am, I have one done on a flip chart size sheet of paper, and it's all magazine cuttings. And I do that sometimes with lean-in circles. I get loads of magazines out, and I get them to pull pictures out that just jump out at them for whatever reason, and put that up on a big flip chart size sheet of paper. But because we've been in lockdown, I'm doing a sort of a DIY job on that, because not everybody has magazines, and it's good when we do this in groups. It gets a lot of energy, and a lot of people can help sort of challenge each other to go higher and more blue sky with their vision board. For now, we're down to this, but it's the roadmap of your life. Okay, down here is your legacy. Pardon my brutal drawing. But down at the bottom of this road is your legacy. Now, what is a legacy? Many people think it's your monetary estate that you leave behind you, and it's not. Your legacy is what your impact has been on the world. So every one of us was put here. We are unique, and that is no coincidence. We are so original and unique, and we've all got good at different things, right? I'm good at motivating people. I love music. Other people hate that, but they're brilliant at data, or they're brilliant at art or something. Whatever it is that you love doing, whether that's gardening or whatever, there's some clues in there around your purpose. And that is where legacy comes in. What do you want to have left the world with that it didn't have before you got here? So where did you lend your skills, your talents, and your characteristics to the world? How did you share that? Because what I hate to see is talent going off to a graveyard. There's loads of talent lying in graveyards, folks, because we were too afraid as humans to actually put ourselves out there. And that's all that fear and the negativity bias. So when you get over that, you start being able to figure out, what kind of a legacy do I want? If I wasn't afraid, what would my legacy be? And here you are at the top of this road, and you've got to figure out all the actions that you need to do along your path, your life path, to make sure that when you are done and you're exhausted, that you have built some kind of a legacy. What will you have left the world with? What changes will you have made to people's lives? So that's the easy, quick and dirty way of doing it. Just do it on a piece of paper. Perfection is the enemy of done. So just get it done today and start thinking about that. And then start working out what kind of actions you need to be doing, and reach out to people. Loads of people mad to help when you reach out and say, I'm wondering about this. I think I would like to do this, but I'm not sure how to do it. Lots of people will go, well, try talking to such a one and talk to the other one. And that's how my life keeps growing and growing, and my network keeps growing and growing. And all of the actions start to happen then. And all of them is in that diary that we talked about earlier. Sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
No, I was just going to say that idea of, perfection getting in the way of action. And I think it's something that we've all seen is when we're trying to react to change. And it's something that I've seen a lot in people there's a fear of taking action because you don't think that it'll be the right thing or it'll be the most perfect way of doing it. So it almost paralyzes you from moving forward. And I think that's a very good message, is to just do it. Because there is no perfect.
Dirty and done. Get it up there. It's like my YouTube videos. Some of them are very rough around the edges. And years ago, I would never have put them up. And yet there's so many people being inspired by them. So don't worry about perfection, right? None of us are, humans aren't great at the out perfection, and nor should we be, right? So get it done some way. There's a question in there about managing people that maybe are in a negative headspace. I think I've seen that somewhere. And even, it's difficult for people who are trying to manage people who are in negative headspaces. And I guess there's a lot of ways you can look at this. When I'm managing teams and I have people in negative headspaces, usually what I've done in the past is made sure that those who are positive get to radiate on my team. They get to be showcased, they are spotlighted, and often that will lift the person who's kind of maybe feeling bad about themselves or don't want to be there. That'll nearly push them into a place where they have to up their game to be part of the team. And I do a lot of work with my teams, you see, on us as a team. How are we all feeling? And I make sure I have a very open, acceptable space to talk, because nobody gets judged by me ever, whether that's in a workplace or a personal space, nobody. And that's because I've worked on all of my biases. And I don't judge me anymore, and I don't judge anyone else. And when I'm like that, and I'm a team lead or I'm an employer, then people will not be afraid to be themselves around me. And if I have somebody that seems like that are maybe suffering from depression, or they're very, very down in themselves, I would actually go, because, it's deadly dangerous at the moment with isolation in pandemic times for people, and nobody knows what anybody else is going through. And we've never seen that so exposed as this, because we were all able to go to work and nobody knew what we were doing at home or our personal lives. And that has all been totally overturned. So we all need to get to know each other better and make sure that we are looking after people, because sometimes it's something that can be fixed fairly easy if you know how. And we talked about some of the supports earlier around, isolation and people working in professional supports. So I would do everything I could to see, can I get that person out of, because nobody wants to be sad and depressed. It's the worst place to be ever. So we all need to put effort in and get round people like that to see what is it that will work, and ask them, what can I be doing differently that would help you? So
absolutely. Yeah, I'm conscious of the fact, sorry, that we're at 11 o'clock now and people probably have meetings and stuff to get to. So if it's okay, I'll wrap it up there, and I'll say that we have recorded the session, and there's obviously links and stuff to go and do more in this space and to find out more and to take action. And I think a lot of people have been inspired and motivated by what you said, Breda. So
and thank you to everybody that has put a comment up there. I appreciate that, because feedback is the lifeblood of somebody who's motivating others. It's very important to me. And if you want to see what I'm at on my social media, I'd love to have you there as well.
Great. Thanks a million, Breda. Thank you so much for your time. And thanks to everyone for coming along.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Breda.
Brilliant.
Great.
Thank you.
Lovely.